It's a Wednesday edition of Locked On Grizzlies. Damichael Cole, the commercial appeal, and Joe Mullinax here with you, talking Derrick Rose being expendable, the mighty Memphis Grizzlies Summer League team taking on the Orlando Magic, and we're leading off with some sneaker news. Damichael Cole, head sneaker honcho of Locked On Grizzlies, going to break down Ja 2s coming up next here on Locked On Grizzlies. Let's lock in.
You are Locked On Grizzlies, your daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is a wild and wonderful Wednesday here on Locked On Grizzlies. We are so thankful that you're joining us wherever you're checking out the show. Hopefully you're an everydayer each and every time an episode drops. You're with Damichael and I here on Locked On Grizzlies. This episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. You can check out Locked On Grizzlies on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube. Literally anywhere you get a podcast, you can find Locked On Grizzlies. Like, comment, rate, review, subscribe. YouTube is booming right now. Folks love pivoting to video, apparently. But remember, there's an audio version of the podcast that you can take Damichael and I with you on wherever you go. When I'm driving to work every morning, I'm listening to our show. When I'm heading home every day, if I didn't get a chance to finish it, I am listening to it on the way home. I do that in my car. I'm not watching it on YouTube. I'm checking it out on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, whatever app I've got loaded. I'm checking it out there. So make sure you're doing the same. And you can subscribe to both, of course, YouTube and wherever you get your audio podcast. Damichael, before we get back into the Summer League fun, obviously Memphis has a game tonight against the Orlando Magic.
Mm-hmm.
You put out a story yesterday that, I'm going to be honest, I'm a little bit frustrated, partner. Not necessarily with you.
I'll say, because I gave you a heads up on this one, I thought.
You did.
Okay.
We talked about it. I'm not disputing that.
Okay.
I, not a sneakerhead, just bought my first
pair
of
you
Ja
did.
Ones in my school's colors, right?
Yep.
They're starting to, they have, I think you wrote in your article, they have over 30 colorways now.
Yep.
And they had a royal blue one. Shout out to the Deep Run Wildcats. I bought my coaching shoes for the year. They're Ja Ones. And then all of a sudden, my shoes are obsolete. Sneakers might as well be like a computer at this point, or an HD TV. The Ja 2s are on the way, you wrote.
They are. Yeah. And Joe, quite frankly, this is more of a delayed thing than an early one, because I know here in Memphis, this is the first signature athlete like playing with the Grizzlies that we consistently had. Of course, Allen Iverson made a pit stop here, Penny Hardaway, and the list goes on. But how all of that relates to Memphis is what you typically have, especially with Nike, under the Nike basketball umbrella. Like LeBron James this year, I think it'll be the LeBron 22, that'll be releasing, which is his 22nd edition of the sneaker. Last year, the 21 came out. You remember during his 20th season, there was the LeBron's 20s. And that came out, and it's the same way pretty much with everyone under the Nike umbrella. The Greek Freak Zoom 1s and then the 2s. And so each season, like pretty much their sneaker releases kind of align with their seasons in the NBA or whenever they become a signature athlete. And in Ja's case, this is his second season. But what makes Ja's situation a little bit different, and why the release of the Ja 2 may be a surprise to some, with all that information taken into account, is the fact that there have been some delays, throughout the process with Ja. You remember it was the Christmas 2022 when we first saw, the sneaker and what it looked like and everything in between. And that was the first game he wore it against the Warriors. And then there were some shock drop releases, which were online, came out of nowhere type release. He did the pop-up shop All-Star Weekend 2023. And that's when the trouble came, right?
Can we just hit pause for a second before you go? Because you're exactly right, and I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Mm-hmm.
You just brought up a really happy time.
It was the good days, right?
Of that Christmas Day game and the pop-up store at All-Star.
It was a good time.
Okay. I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to be happy for a moment.
Joe, that was the coming off the 56-win season.
Oh, man.
Steven Adams was still healthy. I mean, Joe,
Those are the good old days. They really were.
That was a different type of high.
Golly,
but then,
yes,
it felt like when Steven Adams got hurt in January, that was just the start of everything. Because then March happened, and that's when Brandon Clark tore his Achilles, and that's when Ja Morant. Actually, it was January when Ja had the incident with the Pacers laser incident, which the league found no wrongdoing in, but that was the one that was being reported on. But he did, during the game, him and I forgot who the player was, but it was a guard for the Pacers. But I remember James Johnson kind of like being an enforcer during that situation. But that's here nevertheless. The point is, all the things happened in March. Ja gets in trouble, gets suspended 9 games. And that was a key time period because the shoe was supposed to come out then. That was, I think I wrote that at the time, like that was the planned release. They had to put some things back and whatnot. And when they released the shoe in retail stores in April, there was kind of, people didn't know what to expect. But in Memphis, they sold out. I know some other areas as well. I think in Georgia and South Carolina. But he had relatively good success. But its first shoe kind of came out in April, which is, is a little different. So now, we saw the Ja one pretty much had an entire year. I mean, it's been over a year. So the length of the Ja ones is long overdue. But getting into kind of the inside details of the Ja 2 sneaker, Joe, and but this is a shoe that I've known about. I mean, forever. I mean, it's literally, it was, I think, I want to say last year around when they were about to play the Pelicans, when Ja was getting ready to make his return, is when people were starting to tell me about the shoe. But of course, people really close to Ja and whatnot knew about the shoe even well before that because he was showing people, the silhouette, what it looks like, the idea for the shoe and whatnot. But that's when people first started telling me about the shoe. And that's when, you kind of have to think, okay, it's a shoe that's going to come out the next season, which is this upcoming season as well. But now I think the clock, Joe, you will know, when you go into next off season, whatnot, you'll know that, okay, this is when I can get my Ja. This is when it's time to get ready for the Ja 3s. It's like the iPhones. That's the Nike
iPhones, NBA 2K25, or
you don't buy like right before when it's going to come out. That's it's okay. We live and we learn.
I'm just an old washed guy that was excited that the shoe finally came out in colors that I understood.
Yeah.
Right. Like I want to stress, I am the problem. It's me. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me. Right. I'm not making fun of anybody. I'm not saying the Ja one is ugly. I just see certain color patterns and I don't understand because I'm old and
you had to get your color.
Not cool.
Do you like this color? Did you like the sneak peek colorway of the Ja 2? It's a purple galaxy type color. Yeah,
it's not for me. Like I obviously wouldn't wear them.
Yeah, there's
but like Damichael Cole going out on a Saturday night down on Beale Street, I could see those being rocked for sure. A young person with fashion and style and social life, I could certainly see that being the case. I'm excited for Ja. Again, I'm not going to pretend like I'm a sneaker expert. Damichael is phenomenal. There's so many great content creators in Memphis. Nobody's as good at Damichael, in my opinion, period. But especially when it comes to sneaker stuff, and that's a very important part of basketball culture, which is such a big part of the Ja Morant experience, right? Mm-hmm. The reason that people were so high on him in the first place. To see this kind of come back, it's exciting, right? Because it feels like everything is aligning, right? The stars are aligning for a bounce back season, not just for the Grizzlies, but for Ja Morant in particular. After a year of these struggles, Anthony Edwards certainly is an impressive figure. Maybe I'm living under a rock. I don't feel like he took anything from Ja. I just think he's kind of on that realm, right? And they tried to make Tyrese Halliburton a thing, and that wasn't a thing. I feel like if Ja Morant comes back and does what Ja did 2 years ago, we're going to kind of pick up right where we left off.
This Ja 2 is going to be a big sneaker. Like it's because the AE1s, I mean, Adidas is putting a lot of marketing into Anthony Edwards. And it's not to say there's a direct competition between the two, but it's obvious. I mean, when two players of their, with their charisma, with their dunk leaping ability, they both have what it takes to be that face of a sneaker type of ability. And they're with competitors. One's with Adidas, one's with Nike. So they're going to be compared, for those reasons going forward. And just to get inside Ja's sneaker, because it's different, than the Ja 1. The Ja 1 was more of the low top, and Ja, he wore low tops a lot. But this one is more of kind of like a mid-cut, high top model. at first look. And Ja wore a lot of those too. Like if the sneakers that he wore the most before he became a Nike signature basketball guy was KD's, Kyrie's, and Kobe's. And Kyrie's, he wore them as much as any. And the Kyrie ones, this shoe looks similarly from a cut standpoint as the Kyrie one. So look, Ja's going to be pretty comfortable in them. Then you got to worry about all of that adjustment stuff. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's a nice sneaker. And when you look at the bigger picture, the business side of it, Joe, I mean, you said the right name. I mean, Tyrese Halliburton, we're not going to be discussing that name too much in that conversation. Good dude, but it's Anthony Edwards and Ja Morant. One's Adidas, one's Nike. The AE one, for all things considered, has had some decent success so far, just like the Ja one did when it first came out. Both Nike before Ja started getting in trouble. I mean, people were telling me Nike had so many great plans. I remember Powerade, and before Ja split with them, he's no longer with them. Like, they had this nice rollout they were going to do during March Madness. So a lot of Ja's game plan has kind of been curtailed a little bit. But you know what? The Ja 2 is going to be a big opportunity for him to get things going back in the right direction in October when the shoe's supposed to hit retail stores.
I'm hopeful that we're going to spell redemption Jamorant this coming season. I'm doing my part. Like I said the other day, I have my Ja ones that are going to be obsolete in a few months. That's fine. I'll gain a few cool points with my students and players rocking the Ja ones.
Yeah, they'll like them.
Yeah, let us know what you guys think in the comments. Are you going to cop? Is that the right phrasing? Cop?
There you go, Joe. There you go.
Yeah, see, I listen to the
twos. There you go.
Are you going to cop a pair of Ja 2s? Let Michael and I know in the comments. When I say cop, it sounds like I'm referencing the police.
Sounds like it sounds like you're calling the cops, but you're talking about copping the shoes. Though.
No, I'm closer to a Karen than somebody being cool. I understand that. But anyway, I digress. When we come back here on Locked On Grizzlies, we are going to be discussing someone that is near and dear to Damichael Cole's heart and many Memphians' hearts. I am a lot more cold when it comes to Derrick Rose. Is he expendable? We're going to talk about that next here on Locked On Grizzlies. But first, this episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by Game Time. I love going to Major League Baseball games in the summer when it's not scalding hot outside. I know Damichael Cole is a big fan of the Atlanta Braves. I'm a big fan of the Washington Nationals, who are coming along slowly but surely. They're getting better. Either way, going out to the ballpark, taking in a game with family and friends is one of the best ways to make summer memories. Do it the next time you go with the Game Time app. There are plenty of games coming up as the second half of the Major League Baseball season gets underway. You can use the Game Time app for last-minute deals, saving up to 60%, buying last-minute tickets for sports, as well as concerts, comedy, theater, and other events. You get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy if you use the Game Time app. And again, you have all-in pricing options that you can toggle with no surprise fees at checkout, and you get the Game Time lowest price guarantee, or they will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. When we return, should Derrick Rose return to the Memphis Grizzlies? Stick around. Welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies. I am Joe Mullinax, joined by my co-host, Damichael Cole of the Commercial Appeal. And I feel like earlier in the show, we laughed, we had fun. Everybody is getting a good chuckle still at me saying cop in a non-ironic way. Damichael, this is where I think you get a little bit frustrated with me, because every once in a while I poke the bear when it comes to Derrick Rose. And it's one of the few things that I like to kind of needle you about. And I think that you saw on social media, we talked about this before the show, hence why it's a topic on the program.
I said I wasn't going to say a word. I said I'm not going to say a word. I'm just
I asked in earnest who, when the team is healthy, should play minutes in front of Derrick Rose. And it seemed like a majority of the responders agreed with me that there aren't many names on this roster that should sit behind Derrick Rose moving forward. This is not a Derrick Rose preview. This is not an indictment on the contract that the Grizzlies signed Derrick Rose to. It's not that. Mm-hmm. It's a light bulb moment in my mind that we talk about Zaire Williams trade rumors and we talk about John Conchar being on the trade block. He's been on the trade block for a year and a half, it feels like, right?
Yeah.
We talk about those two names all the time. A name that gets mentioned a lot less often is Derrick Rose. A major reason for that is the guy's a Memphis legend, right? If you grew up in Memphis, especially during that Memphis Tigers run, you have a special place in your heart for Derrick Rose, and you always will. I didn't grow up in Memphis during that time. Such a soft spot doesn't exist. I would be okay if they waive Derrick Rose tomorrow. I don't think they're going to. For a variety of legitimate reasons. But I believe watching Summer League and the love that you have for Scottie Pippen Jr., contracts don't make Derrick Rose expendable. But if Scottie Pippen Jr. is at game 52 of the regular season and he's been with the Memphis Grizzlies 49 of those 52 games and they got to make a decision, I think I'm saying goodbye to Derrick Rose.
Okay. I'm going to answer this and I'm going to get straight to the point, but I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to ask you a question before I answer it. It's not going to change my answer no matter what you say, but I do want to ask you a question.
Fair.
And that question for you is, do you trust the maturity level, and all things? I'm not even talking just off the court stuff, but how the Grizzlies respond to adversity, all those things, the mental aspect of the game. Do you trust the young Grizzlies core to, I guess, grasp those things better than they did during the 2022, 2023 seasons? Are you at that point where you trust them wholeheartedly?
Wholeheartedly. I trust Desmond Bane and Jaren Jackson Jr. I trust those two guys, which might be part of the point that you're making.
There's one that's a lot bigger than both of them. there's one more.
I want to trust John Morant, but I think that we have to have that bounce back season before I can fully be in that trusting camp.
Okay. And what if I say, when Derrick Rose is around, my trust for Ja goes up even more? That's and let me be clear on this, because Derrick Rose said it from the jump himself, and that's not even the vibe that I get. There isn't a babysitting vibe here at all. It's more of when you see a guy like Derrick Rose go about his work, and then just being around Derrick Rose over the last year, like players on the team would unprovokingly talk to me about it. They bring up
Derrick Rose before they bring up Marcus Smart.
I mean, yeah, for sure. And I remember just like Zaire Williams, where he's like, man, y'all guys you just have no clue what this dude just meant to me this season. Like, I didn't even ask him about him. He's just going on and on and on. And it's not just him. It's so many guys, around the team. Because Derrick Rose is one of those guys, he's not rah-rah. He's not going to, Marcus Smart is more rah-rah. He's going to talk a little bit more. Derrick Rose, the Grizzlies are trying to make him talk. That's kind of the whole thing. They're like, look, we will listen to you when you say something. We just need you to say it. Derrick Rose always been, I'd rather show you. He's not really, you know how Derrick Rose is. He's been like that his entire career, just more kind of sheltered is the right word, I think, in that way. But the point that I'm making is, when you think about expendable, it's a minimum contract, so it's not a huge amount of dollars that's committed to it, so it doesn't really make sense in today's NBA landscape to trade him, because you're not really getting anything back with that contract. And then on top of that, the idea of waiving him doesn't make much sense to me at this point, simply because if you were to waive Derrick Rose, you have to eat that money, and the Grizzlies are too close to the first apron, to the tax, and we'll see how those things kind of work themselves out here in the next few weeks. But they're too close to that amount to make that decision right now, unless they know that there's some other moves to come. So that's kind of the business side of it. But then when you get into and then I just touched on the mental side of it. But here's the point. This is where me and Joe really disagree. But even the physical side of it, like, I feel like when we saw him play, he was not bad. He was
pretty washed.
he was not bad, Joe. If you tell me
that's your Memphis Tiger blue glasses that you're looking through, Damichael.
No, it's not. I love Derrick Rose growing up, but I think I wasn't the kid who cried, like my eyes out when Mario Chalmers made the shot and whatnot. But at the same time, we all love Derrick Rose. But with all that being said, The point is, when you watch him play, I mean, again, this is something else the players were talking about. They were like, man, he's still so quick, and we saw it. But the thing is, we only saw it 2-3 games at a time. Then boom, hamstring, boom, ankle. With all that factored in, I think, it's good to have a Scottie Pippen Jr. when we'll talk more about that dynamic and how the Grizzlies need to utilize that situation going forward. But if you tell me Ja Morant's going to play 33 minutes a game, Desmond Bane probably will play 2 to 3 minutes as the lead guard. So you got 36 minutes covered. Derrick Rose, we just need you for 12. I'm cool with that. Like, he comes in, he gives you, 3 minutes a quarter, the last 3 minutes of the first quarter, first 3 minutes of the second quarter, and then does the same thing, in the second half. Last 3 minutes of the third quarter, first 3 minutes of the second quarter, of the fourth quarter. And boom, you got your 12 minutes. So I think that's fine, if that's what you're asking of Derrick Rose, because when he's out there, he's still very explosive from the standpoint of he's shifty, left to right explosive, not up and down vertically anymore. But I think him being in that second unit wouldn't be the worst thing in the world.
It wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. And I think that you hit on an important point, the unprompted respect. Right? Like, that's not something that you see, especially in the NBA. I think a couple episodes ago, we talked about the Paul George, Montrezl Harrell kind of stuff. And PG kind of saying, hey, do you know who I am? How you talking to me like that? That's fairly common, right? Like, at least in my experience being around NBA players and teams, there's definitely a hierarchy within rosters. Hey, I'm the max guy. I'm the star. You keep your mouth shut when you're talking. You don't talk to me that way, right? The unprompted respect for Rose tells you a lot. And I think that even though he is not going to be what I think Damichael says he's going to be, and this will just be something that we disagree on and watch as the year goes on, and we'll see who's right. I do agree that to waive him doesn't make sense because of the apron stuff and the need to fill. You don't want to, if they get hard capped at some point, there's so many difficulties that can come from just outright waiving him. You're not going to get anything for him in a trade. I think he makes sense just hanging out on the roster, and you hope for the best for him. Let Damichael and I know what you guys think in the comments. How do you feel about Derrick Rose's role on the Grizzlies moving forward? We took very different paths to get there, but I think Damichael and I agree he'll be around for the whole season. When we come back here on Locked On Grizzlies, we will close out this episode previewing Summer League basketball. Again, no disrespect to the Summer Orlando Magic. Not going to talk about them a ton. What do we want to see from the Summer Grizzlies? Stick with us. Welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies. I am Joe Mullinax, joined by Damichael Cole of the Commercial Appeal. I want to remind you, after this episode is over, you should go check out Locked On Sports Today. It's the first of its kind 24/7 streaming channel over on YouTube. It's also a channel on Amazon Fire under the free TV Channels app. Make sure you're checking out Locked On Sports Today. Great Locked On podcast content without the screaming talking heads of Fox Sports and ESPN. Although I did notice in the YouTube comments, Damichael, a couple people said on a recent episode, I'm starting to sound like
said you were getting a little raw over there.
A little too fired up.
Get your little Skip Bayless on.
Woosah. I don't want to be unemployed like Skip Bayless. Apparently, that's coming. But I digress. I'm on fire today. Let's focus on Summer League basketball here to close out the show, Damichael. Again, I don't expect Zach Edey to play. It'll be great if he does. I do think this could be the last time we see a Jake LaRavia, maybe even a G.G. Jackson. It's a double header, right? A back-to-back, not a double header, a back-to-back. So they play again on Thursday. It'll be interesting to see how they manage those minutes. We'll get an update on Cam Spencer at some point, I'd imagine. Lots of levels to this that go beyond who they're playing. Orlando is a younger team. That's important to point out. I do think there's potential for this to be a competitive basketball game, unlike the previous two. But at the same time, so much of that young elite talent in Orlando is not playing Summer League, obviously, that I think the Grizzlies are still going to have a depth advantage over the Magic.
Yeah, and the Magic do have more talent than the last two teams. In particular, Anthony Black, Jett Howard. Those two guys have had good Summer Leagues so far. So it's a good chance to play some other good young talent that's probably going to be, definitely going to be on a team's roster. Whereas these last couple games, there were guys, out there, and we weren't seeing guys that you're probably going to see in regular season rotations and whatnot. So that'll be good for the Grizzlies. But more to the Grizzlies side, let's start with the Cam Spencer angle. the ankle. I haven't heard anything, from an update standpoint, but if you saw it, let's just say I'll probably be surprised, if he comes out there. I mean, and maybe it was one of those things where it just looked worse than it actually was.
He is a dog, remember. He's a dog.
And he's willing to die on that court. He said it. He's willing to die to win. But with all that being said, I mean, if the Grizzlies have been very cautious with Zach Edey, Cam Spencer is the guy in the rookie class. I would say that he's the second most guy who's shown, what he can bring to this team this upcoming season. So with that being said, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they rested him, which will mean more minutes for Jalen Wells, possibly putting him back into the starting lineup, seeing what that looks like. Jalen Wells came on a little bit, I think, in the second half of this last game. I still want to see more from him, though. I haven't seen enough yet to be convinced that, this pick is going to work out. And Cam Spencer, I think I've seen enough, at least in Summer League. The next step is doing it against G League and NBA competition. I've seen enough in Summer League to say, Cam Spencer's right where he needs to be right now. Jalen Wells looks to be a little bit behind. I don't think it's a big deal because it's Summer League basketball. But with all that being said, I want to see more from him in this environment. Scottie Pippen Jr. doesn't have to show me much more. Jake LaRavia doesn't have to show me much more in terms of what they can do in Summer League. Like it's about the next level of competition for those dudes. Because when people hear me bragging on more so Jake LaRavia, when they hear that, they automatically think it's, he's he's a rotation player with the Grizzlies and he's going to do that and this. It's like, no, he is standing out amongst Summer League competition, which is what he should do. He's a third-year player, just like Scottie Pippen Jr. He's a third-year NBA player. They should stand out against a bunch of guys who are in their first years and in their second seasons. And they're doing just that. Gigi Jackson, stack a couple good games on top of each other. But more than anything, it's Jalen Wells for me. We'll see what happens with Zach Edey. Clearly, Joe, you sound like the person whose significant others kept telling them, like, I'm going to change. Just stick with me. I'm going to change. and you keep believing it, Joe, and they keep hurting you and hurting you and hurting you. Now you're at the point you've lost all hope. But with Zach Edey, but
I'm not ready to be hurt again. I'm just not. If he's in the starting lineup tonight, I'm going to be thrilled. Not holding my breath because I'll pass out and die.
Yeah. Don't hold your breath. But I mean, he was close to playing his last game. From what I heard, like he went through shoot around and like they were testing it out and whatnot. So if he tested it out in the shoot around, I mean, I hesitate to say that I feel like he will play, but I think there's a decent chance that he's available. And if that's the case, then that shifts things a little bit. Obviously, having him back on the floor. Just probably that Cam Spencer's not going to be out there. But even with that being the case, okay, Jalen Wells, your next man up. He's the guy who I think these next 3 games, at least potentially even 4 with the Grizzlies, these next 3 Summer League games mean the most to him of any player there, in my opinion. Jalen Wells, that is.
Yeah, because he's the one on the standard contract, right? They've made the decision. They've made the choice. That is their guy that is filling that role. And, Cam Spencer, if he's struggling, go down to the Memphis Hustle. That's not a problem, right? That's an easy fix. They are going to need something from Jalen Wells at some point this season, understanding that injuries happen in the NBA and that sort of stuff. So I'm with you. I'm going to be watching Wells closely in this contest. I've been pleasantly surprised. I've gotten some blowback on my Gigi Jackson takes. I think the fact that you agree with me helps me, partner. Because they realize if they get mad at me, they're also getting mad at you, which is, they're not going to do because you're Damichael and I can't get mad at you. Look at you. You're phenomenal. We're on the same page with Gigi. I'm with you on Wells as my number 1. Number 2 is if we're going to punt passing, I would like to continue to see rebounding, right? Like I think that is
with Gigi, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
That is a genuine positive for him. We've talked about him being competition with Santi Aldama, right, for that 9th rotation spot. He needs to be able to show that he can clean the glass, and that is something that we've seen consistently from him. So
you're saying just at this point, just Michael Porter Jr. Like it is what it is, because that's Michael Porter Jr. Right? Yeah,
that's bait. That's bait right there. That was Damichael Porter. I'm getting wiser as I get older. That's bait. We don't have enough time for that answer. We'll save that for another episode of
sure.
Locked On Grizzlies. Oh, you're good, Damichael. That was fantastic.
I learned from the best, man. I learned from the best.
Let Damichael and I know how you're feeling about the game tonight. Is Zach Edey going to play? Are you looking forward to Gigi Jackson not passing the basketball? Are you excited about Jalen Wells hopefully bouncing back and putting some games together that are worthy of a standard contract player like Jake LaRavia has done? Lots of things to take a look at in tonight's game. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Locked On Grizzlies. Obviously, tomorrow, partner, we'll have a basketball game to discuss. Maybe we'll dig into the Michael Porter Jr. nonsense that you just tried to bait me with at the end of our show. Lots of angles that we can take another game to preview, right? It's a back-to-back for the Grizzlies out in Vegas.
Back-to-back for the Grizzlies. So, a lot. We'll have a lot to talk about. But, we just hit on a lot of stuff there. We didn't talk about Zach Edey a lot, but still, that is a storyline. Having the big guy available would be good to see, other than anything. So I want to see that as well. But a lot of storylines to hit on, and it's going to be a fun episode for sure.
And if nothing else, I'll stop complaining about it. And that'll free up at least 5 minutes of every episode of Locked On Grizzlies, me complaining about Zach Edey not playing for Team Canada and sitting on a bench in Vegas instead. Hopefully he's at least hitting a slot machine or something like that, having some sort of fun. But I digress. Make sure you're checking out Locked On Grizzlies on YouTube, but also on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, literally anywhere you get podcasts. Make sure you're liking, commenting, rating, reviewing, subscribing. Take Damichael and I with you on the go everywhere you go. Become an everydayer each and every time an episode drops. Go make Locked On NBA your second listen or watch today. Go check out Locked On Sports Today, 24/7 streaming service, on YouTube, as well as on Amazon Fire under the free TV channels app. For Damichael, I am Joe. Enjoy the game tonight. We'll catch you back here tomorrow on Locked On Grizzlies. And again, really want to drive home, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, anywhere you get an audio podcast, take Damichael and I with you wherever you go. See ya.